Most Americans think that if you end up in court, you're entitled to a lawyer, even if you can't afford one. But that's only true in criminal court, which means that almost all other defendants are on their own, including immigrants in detention. That's especially problematic now that the administration is cracking down on illegal immigration. Advocates have launched their own push to expand representation, and they're confronting a difficult question: who's worth defending and who isn't?
Paul Soak spends most of his days at a community center in Inglewood, where he works as an organizer for a youth nonprofit.
It's true.
Paul grew up in Long Beach, but it's something of a miracle he's still here. He was born in a refugee camp in Thailand to Cambodian parents, who brought him to the US as a baby. At 17, he robbed a store with a gun and landed in prison. 15 years into his sentence, he was released on parole, then immediately transferred to an immigrant detention center for deportation. Paul had taught himself law in prison, but he was overwhelmed when he appeared before an immigration judge by video conference. Like most people facing deportation, he didn't have a lawyer to help him.
I felt like somewhat that I understood some of the law.
And you'd been studying it a lot.
Yeah, but like understanding the concept of it and its application are two separate things. Because when you go in there, they're just shouting out numbers and statutes and things like that. And like, can you really remember all these numbers at the same time?
Paul was ordered deported in 2015. But the government mistakenly tried to send him to Thailand, not Cambodia. And Paul had enough legal know-how to persuade a judge to reopen his case, then release him on bond. Do you think that the typical immigrant facing removal would have been capable of doing that without a lawyer?
No. Hands down, I would say no.
Other immigrants that Paul met in detention were so impressed with the way he represented himself that they still call him for advice.
Hey, any news on what's going on with your case? You have to understand too that it's not that you're in immigration court. In immigration court, it's not a real court, It's not bound to the regular set of rules.
Lawyers in immigration court are rare. Only 14% of detained immigrants have one, even though the immigration enforcement system is nearly identical to the criminal justice system. That's why there's a growing movement around the idea that immigrants should be guaranteed access to a lawyer. Munmeeth Sony is with Immigrant Defenders, a legal aid group founded on that principle.
This is
one case.
This is one case.
One client.
One client, one case. These are people's lives at stake. Whether being able to stay here with your family, with your community, or to be uprooted and forever possibly be exiled from this country is a matter of life or death. At a minimum, this is sort of our commitment as a society to the role of due process.